probably didn't come on because instead of my
There it is.
clicking continue, I clicked cancel. That would turn it off.
And as everybody is getting ready for this fabulous meeting of all this information, I know Deborah probably already said it, and I put it in the chat, but in order to know who's in the room, if you can just change your name to add your state, or if you just want to put it in the chat, Deborah and I will be glad to add it to your name because we always want to know who's in the room. And if somebody comes up with an idea that you want to ask them about, you'll know what state they're coming from and where you can find them. So please add your name or put it in the chat, and we'll be glad to do that for you.
And you wouldn't be surprised, I'm sure, to know that we get probably 10 to 15 requests after one of these meetings for somebody said something about X. And could you tell me how to get to that person? And we use the screen information that we get from you to find your email. We even try to do that immediately after and make sure that people can talk to each other and get with each other. So, okay, we are at time now. As I said, I put on the QR code to a Microsoft form to just collect information about topics that you might want to have discussed coming up. We know we're going to have a couple of panels of staff and volunteers, and a couple of professionals will be coming in later on in the year. We've got communications with disgruntled or challenging volunteers has been suggested. And then support for volunteers, things like how do volunteers get good information about retirement concerns while they're being a volunteer, not from AARP, but necessarily how are things that we can help them. There was a wide range that we've gotten so far, but I just know that there's probably some suggestions here that we haven't thought about. The first topic that we've got for January, yay, is strategies for retaining volunteers, options that work in challenging or normal times. I know sometimes people get a little bit sad with me because I tend to think that we've been in challenging times for a long time. I'm not sure it's normal, but we'll stay positive and say that this is normal as well, because it may be normal going forward. We've got a number of questions that we'd like to discuss today. So, Dr. Mary, would you like to start us?
Sure. And while I'm doing that, if you want to just make me a co-host so I can help you out in the near future with anything you might need, that'd be
You may
great.
remind me to turn on the recording, things like that, right?
So
Okay.
it's great to be able to spend this Tuesday afternoon with all of you who are here. And each year, I'm always just amazed at how Deborah comes up with the questions for our conversations. She comes up with these well in advance of these meetings, but they're always so topical. And I always admire that foresight that she has. So today's question that I'll start with, and I'll put it in the chat so that you can read it too. How do we attract volunteers needed for our community work and our service initiatives? And we're always looking at ways that are working in other parts of the country. This sounds like a very simple question, but we know that different strategies work for different people in different areas. So we'd like you to share just some of the things that are working for you. We know that our volunteer efforts are appreciated. We know that we are the heartbeat of AARP and all of our efforts. How are you doing in attracting your volunteers, whether it be those who are doing the little L, the small leadership roles, or those big L leadership roles? And I see Dennis. What's going
I guess a clarification question.
on? Mhm.
Are we attracting new volunteers or are we trying to engage our current volunteers?
We are trying to do both. So, do you have a response
Okay.
to either or?
Well, I have a response for new. We in Chattanooga, we had a great response by holding a wine and cheese get together at a restaurant in the city where we sent out a broadcast email invitation to the AARP members in the zip codes that we're concerned with. But we brought in a representative from each functional area of AARP. Uh, the legislation team, the service team, the driver safety team, etc., and gave each of the area representatives 3 to 5 minutes to give a short overview to all those in attendance as to what they do and how they do it, and then opening up the invite that if you're interested in this type of activity, we have a sign up sheet over on the table. You aren't committing to anything, you're just expressing an interest. I want to know more about this. The first time we did it, we had maybe 35 people respond and show up for the event, and we ended up with 17 new volunteers. So it was a very well received. They knew that if they were coming on as a volunteer, what to expect, not just I'm giving you of my time, tell me what I can do. It was more of these are the things that we do. Tell us how you would like to engage.
Thank you. And we always know that public gatherings where there's a little bit of food and libation is always successful, and especially when it's on AARP. And I think we found a model to be able to do that responsibly, and people come together. And that is Dennis. That's half of who showed up volunteered. So that's a wonderful outcome. Thanks for sharing that. And who is that? Romel, what's going on in the Georgia
Oh,
region?
and I have a question for Dennis. Uh,
Yes.
Dennis, who sponsored your event? Who paid for the wine? How did you get that
It,
done?
it was part of our Chattanooga team budget. Uh, it was it was under $200,
Mhm.
uh, and we
Okay.
had enough so that people had short wine glasses. You can get the different sizes, but we had short ones,
Yeah.
uh,
Okay.
just enough to break the ice.
Right. Okay. It's a great idea.
And I know a lot of times, I know there was an event similar to that here in Michigan when we were doing the Social Security um, celebration, and everybody got one or two tickets. So, sometimes it's giving out a ticket and people get what they want, or it's the small glasses and everybody can,
Uh-huh.
have a
Yeah,
great.
and I have to admit, our original team event was we were trying to build the Chattanooga team up. Uh, we had been designated a focus city within the state, and
Hmm.
in order to ensure that we had adequate volunteer hours available, we wanted to have a robust group of people willing to engage. And once they understood, you know, that AARP is more than just discounts and that we were actively working in the region, that got the hook of them wanting to participate.
Very good. Thank you. Um, and while others are thinking,
I would just,
did,
yeah.
oh,
We, After COVID, we our membership, we usually had about 60 people that were really involved in Augusta, Georgia. But after COVID, people just kind of dwindled away and went away. And when we finally came back to where we were meeting in person, our 60 people had become like 18 or 19 people. And so we started to do kind of a rebuild, um, re, rebuild the group, reinvigorate old members. So we had a calling person who's very vivacious and energetic. So Mary took on trying to we call it round up our old members, and then we started a thing where we said, okay, we're going to have the Recruiter of the Year award at the end of the year. So, and people that are doing things that they enjoy are really good at selling it to other people if they like it. So, and we want people who are like them. So, and people usually hang with people like yourself. So, we had a bunch of teachers and we had a bunch of we have a nuclear power plant, people who'd worked in engineering and all kinds of things. So we said, bring some of your friends who aren't involved and let's come to our meeting. And we had a nice lunch for them and just to hear about what we do. And we did like kind of what you did. And the other thing that we added besides doing the area folks was we gave them like 5 minute snippets of our educational programs, the prepare to care, brain health, financial resilience, and so that people realize that we are offering something great to the community. They said, oh God, we need to do that at my church. So not only did we get new members, but we got a big blossom in our community outreach activity because the new people were discovered places where we could take it where we hadn't been before. So, and Jewel Lockett at the next year of our January meeting, she got her little certificate as like Recruiter of the Year because she is herself invited and we got 7 new members from one person. And other people had 2 and people had 3 and I had 1 and so that was kind of a getting the people who are already doing it to sell it to other people. And that was in Augusta, Georgia.
Thank you. Well, you've had wonderful opportunity to hear what they're doing in Tennessee and Chattanooga and in Augusta. Um, Thank you both for sharing. I want to just point to the chat where Janine says in Massachusetts that we're trying to keep our seasoned volunteers by elevating their responsibilities with a certification for more training, and it's going slow. You have to mix it up to keep people to be engaged. We also automated our tabling request forms, and the seasoned volunteers are now our schedulers. So thank you for sharing that, Janine from Massachusetts.
Yeah,
Um,
there's another question in the chat related to that. There's a
how did you
question about,
automate this? Is that
yes, so
Yeah,
we
I want to hear
wonder,
about that too. That's my question.
okay,
Janine, you want to come off mute and share how you automated the schedule or the tabling requests?
Hi there, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I have been with ARP, just an FYI to people that don't know, a little over a year, and it's been very eye-opening to say the least. We automated our system using Microsoft Forms, and Antron Watson, who is our livable director, he did all of those steps. So I really couldn't even tell you where he began. But what happens is a person will ask for our help, and we will get a form. And on that form, it contains the location, what type of resource fair, what type of fair it is, how many volunteers may be needed, that sort of thing. I get it. I approve it. I have all the details. Then I transfer. Once I hit approve, it automatically goes to our lead volunteers, which are our schedulers. Once they receive that information from me, they then start the process of recruiting volunteers for those particular tabling uh, events. And so far, we've had a few glitches, but so far it's working really well. We use Sign Up Genius as well. So once we get people signed up, I automatically see it. And yeah, I hope that made sense to everyone. And if you wanted more information, I'd be happy to have Antron reach out to you guys regarding the automated request form.
Yeah.
Janine, that would be wonderful. Not only
Okay.
would we like him to reach out, but if we can get a sample of what's used, I think that will help people understand how to configure what they want to follow along with that.
Okay. I'll be happy to do that, Deborah.
Thank you so much. Now, Dr.
You're
Mary, I
welcome.
just stepped all over you.
That's okay. I love hearing the things that Antron does. He's one of my favorite people in Massachusetts, so
He
please
is amazing, absolutely
my
amazing.
regards. Oh,
Thank you so much.
well, thank you for sharing that. And while we're thinking about that question, and um, um, you kind of already touched on it in some of the responses about retaining volunteers. What strategies can we use to retain volunteers beyond the original interest displayed? And again, some of you have given examples about the certifications and kind of using those who are cheerleaders and attracting their friends and bringing their friends. Are there any other examples of retaining current volunteers beyond the original interest that they expressed? And for those of you who have joined us, if you don't have your state beside your name, if you can change your name to represent your state or just put it in the chat, we'll be glad to update your name with your state because we want to know who's in this room. Amber, you came on camera, so I know you have something to say, right?
Well, I was just going to say, when I think about the volunteers who were on my team, most of them are doing things they never signed up for. So they got lots of opportunities to participate and take on new things and to try it out and see what they liked. So I think just giving them and being open and allowing them to try new things is more than half of it.
Very good, because we never know if we don't know all that's available when we come in as new volunteers, or even as we continue to be volunteers. It
Right.
might be something that we just love to do that we just don't know that there's a need there. So thanks for bringing that up. Gloria, I see your hand, and then Antoine.
Okay, I will have to agree with Amber. Ours is not, I wouldn't call them strategies. It's just as you grow within the organization, you take on something you didn't consider before or didn't even know existed. And we make those opportunities available to everyone. We, like many here, I'm sure, have monthly meetings. One of the things we go through are all the outreach opportunities for the next 2 or 3 months. And in some cases we need 2 volunteers, in some we need 8 or 10. So we go through that and make sure everyone knows. And our new ASD has put a one place, and I don't know if she used Microsoft Forms or not, but it's one website we can go to see that list and let her know if we want to be a part of any of the openings. And we do that for Speakers Bureau also for the presentations. But in the meeting, monthly meeting, each leader goes over their area. So by the end of the meeting, a new volunteer or a seasoned volunteer knows the wide spectrum of things that we're doing locally. And we urge them to get involved and to let us know if they want to be put on an onboarding team or a livable communities team. So that's just kind of how we're doing it, and letting the volunteers know that there are many things they can reach. You can try it. You don't like it, you can try something else. So thank you.
Thank you. Antoine, what's going on in California?
Of course, I'm on mute. It's 2026 New Year. Haven't figured out the button yet. Just a few things. One is, first of all, good morning, good afternoon, good night, depending on where you are.
Right.
We let kind of we let new volunteers know about, the opportunity to peek behind the AARP curtain. And that's a little bit of an incentive to folks. They want to know beyond membership, right? And like all the different things, like how do I get on the movies for grown-ups list and stuff like that. Those questions are getting access to things. We try to invite volunteers to kind of those nice events where we have a table and they get to dress up and it's California, so sometimes we get those things that are happening, like the Movies for Grown-ups Awards that was just taped this past weekend. Some volunteers were able to go to that to be able to, be there and kind of sit at tables with celebrities. They can't ask them any questions or anything, but, it's kind of access to those special events that oftentimes are connected to a sponsorship that we might do or something like that. And then the other thing, because someone mentioned in the chat, referral pro. So we do have a referral program. I've mentioned it before on here where we recognize volunteers, given the point that someone just made about volunteering, volunteers knowing other volunteers, right? Other people who they would like to volunteer with. So we encourage folks to refer volunteers, and if that new volunteer is active for 3 months, then the person who made the referral gets a $25 gift card. And then if that new volunteer is active at least a year, the volunteer who made the referral gets a $50 gift card, and a nice little card with a handwritten message. So those are three things: peeking behind the curtain, inviting volunteers to those nice, really nice, dressy uppy kind of things that I don't like to go to, and then the gift card program where we try to recognize volunteers, kind of like an employee referral program.
Thank you, Antoine.
Sure.
And let me just refer back to the chat because I did see a couple of things in there. Want to make sure we covered everything. The form that Antron has, Kathy put a link to that in the chat, and she also put a link in Chattanooga. So make sure you download those if you want that information, but don't let it take you off the focus of this wonderful meeting. Let me see. Darlene said she met with Kathy Kynes last week and said a few states are rewarding. So Antoine just kind of referred to some of that. But the new volunteer needs to be with AARP for at least 6 months in Rhode Island. And we did hear that others are using that incentive. Um, Amber mentioned something about the portal for volunteers to sign up for shifts, and there's a learning curve to the portal. Um, Janine, you have your hand up again. You want to?
Oh, yes, I just wanted to let you guys know that that form is a speaker's form, and that is not the same form for volunteer tablers. That's something totally different,
Okay.
and that's not the form that I was referring to.
Okay. So we'll make sure that we get that form, and Deborah will probably put it in the portal with this recording. So thanks for
Okay.
letting us know that.
Yes, please, because I don't want anyone getting the wrong information. Thank you.
Sorry
Thank
about
you.
that. I deleted it.
It's okay, Kathy. We're all here to help each other.
Yeah.
So I have two more questions just to add to this, and please know that if there's anything that comes to your mind that you want to add to the conversation, we want to hear about it. How do we assess that the opportunities we have available are appealing to the volunteers we attract or that we already have? And when does listening come in with volunteers? Is it initial listening or is it continual listening? And I think there was someone that kind of alluded to that as well. So, as we're making these opportunities available for volunteers, how do you assess any changes needed? And when are you listening to hear what other things volunteers want? Dennis?
I think the one tidbit that I got over the past year on participating in these meetings was realizing that when I engaged with my volunteers, I was coming up with an event or an activity that met the needs of our goals for the region, but I never asked the volunteers how they wanted to engage. So one of the things we did this year was on a periodic, usually every 3 to 4 month basis, is ask them to send back to us what their current passions are, and then trying to work with them to identify our current activities and goals and to see how it would fit their stated passions. So in each step of the way, we were making sure that we were engaging with them in ways that encouraged them to participate because we were addressing where their true interests were lying at that point in the year.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And that kind of connects to one of my favorite questions to ask when I do a workshop on leadership is, what are you good at? What do you enjoy doing? And many of those things that you are good at or enjoy doing are aspects of many of the things that we do as AARP volunteers. And something can be found in the uh, whole offerings of what we do that allow people to do the things that they are good at and the things that they enjoy doing. And
And
of course,
we always asked that question when we brought them on the team, but we never revisited it
Mhm.
without realizing that their passions can change.
and just like Amber said earlier, it's kind of an evolving process with when you know more about what can be done and what's available, um, you step up and do it. So revisiting that question is something that may need to happen more than just twice a year. And sometimes if there's new volunteers at your monthly or quarterly meetings, whenever you hold those meetings, that might be a good question to just ask, what kind of things do you want to do? Are you good at doing, or do you enjoy doing as a volunteer? Just so that we can make those adjustments. Um, Let me see. I see some activity in the chat. Steve, like these questions, and how do we ensure current volunteers are being leveraged for skills like planning and strategy for volunteer growth, setting guardrails for examples, and then asking volunteers to develop plans for the state staff to greenlight. How much of that are folks seeing? In my mind, that is where the capacity adding and development comes from. And if I could just do a shameless plug right now, um,
Sure, go on, Dr. Mary.
I belong to a phenomenal team of volunteer facilitation and training team members, and many of us are on this call. Many of us have visited many of your states for a variety of reasons, and we're always willing and able to come and provide short trainings, day-long trainings, virtual trainings on leadership development, engaging volunteers. Uh, you name it, we can do it. Our staff partners, Tara, Kathy, Christina, um, and of course, you can ask Will of what it is we can do, and we're available. So, end of my shameless plug and commercial. If you if you want somebody outside of your team to facilitate so you can be actively involved, staff members, we have a phenomenal team that can do that for you and at no cost to you. I know you need to hear that as well. So back to our regularly scheduled questions. Um,
Right.
Deborah, I've talked too much. Girl, take it
Okay.
away.
Yes, I'm taking it now. Thank you very much, Dr. Mary. Thank you, everyone else, for so long starting out. One of the things that I wanted to get us to is encouraging and retaining our current volunteers, because we know they tend to sometimes, I know gosh, I've been doing this for 16 years, 8 years on this. And we sometimes kind of burn out. And so I was going to put some information out today that you can use that cuts it down to 10 strategies. And I'm going to provide that. But the first one is to have a purpose for our organization, which AARP gives us plenty of purpose. We're good with that. But then we've got to offer roles that fit what we call real lives. It's how people live now. How much time do they have? They're not, they sometimes have to watch their grandchildren. They have to do other things in the afternoon. So, we've got to adjust what we do to fit the way they live now. Our third thing is to build a warm, welcoming culture. You've talked about that as well. But that is more than just giving them food. It is, as someone said, calling when someone's not there. Can we help you? Do we understand what the barriers are for volunteering? Our fourth thing was to meet people where they already are. We're not trying to change these volunteers. We know they're coming with wonderful skills and interest, and we want to keep that interest going. So, we've got to get them started, keep them going, but always cognizant of where they are. We've got to make that first step when we're attracting people. We've got to make that effortless. Sometimes we may put in too many roadblocks in the way, and we've got to figure out ways to make it easier for people to be a part of our wonderful teams. And we can highlight the skills that they're going to enhance in various positions, or, and we don't want to call them positions, it's opportunities. And Dennis, because it's kind of what you were saying, we give people a broad choice of things and let them help us understand what works for them. And that gets back to what Dr. Mary was saying about getting to your passion. The seventh thing was letting volunteers recruit volunteers. And I know, we've got to do that to make sure that we build up the numbers of people that are out there, and staff can't do everything, but we've got really intelligent, talented volunteers, and we've got to encourage them and let them know how they're helping the organization by doing that. The eighth thing is, again, removing any of the barriers that push people away. Sometimes we can do transportation trees. There are other things. We've got people sometimes scattered all over a state, and we've got differences in how they have to get around, but we've got to think about those. And then where we're listening to our volunteers, we need to also listen and find ways to ask our community that we're going to be in, how do we create what is necessary in that community? How do we change or make the priorities that AARP has identified work in the community in which we're providing service? It's really not that difficult, probably, but it's more just an opportunity to ask the question and then pay attention to the answer. And finally, we have to keep the feedback loop alive. And that gets us back to AARP way. It makes it different for us working in AARP. And that means when people tell us something, it's good for them to be able to see that we've made an adjustment tied to what they have said. So, but we keep that feedback loop going. We keep asking. And I think someone on the chat put in that they're using the executive council meetings and the planning for state planning to get responses and involve volunteers even more in figuring out what some of those issues and should be. So I'm going to put this particular list with its detail on the chatter work page. So you can get to that, and you'll be able to also get to the 12 topics that we'll have, or 11, I guess, remaining for the rest of the year. Um, Dale, you had your hand up? If you'll come off mute,
Yeah,
please.
I'm sorry. Yes, I've been two meetings at the same time. What you was the 10 things that you had just stated, I've been
Mhm,
going through here in Maryland with my counties, and I was sharing with my state office that I am getting a little burnt out because I am covering three small counties, but
mhm,
just keeping my few little volunteer teams together. Like I said, since COVID, I started out with maybe 10 and now I'm down to two, including me, make three. And it does sometimes get challenging, but again, I keep my AARP head going because I figured like I had eight then, hopefully I have 18 this year, thinking positive. So I do like some of the things that you just listen. I do listen to the few team members I have, but I just would like to see that my volunteers here in Maryland grow much bigger, much bigger. So thank you.
sure. Anyone else?
Dale, are you a volunteer or are you a staffer?
I am a staffer. I'm one of your regional coordinator volunteers for the state of Maryland. I do go to the state office and be on some state meetings with Kathy Lewis and Nancy Carr
Uh,
and Jen, but I go all over the state, be actually honest. I just don't stay in my tri-counties. If they need me up in Cecil County, Talbot County, I go all, I'm one of the volunteers that don't mind going through the
so
state
you're
to make
you're
sure
you're you're
AARP
at,
is represented.
you're at ASD?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you. I just, one of the things I'm kind of interested in because I'm hearing all of this. I'm not
Mhm,
normally here. I mean, I kind of come and go. Is
sure.
you guys seem to have a lot of roles. We have a lot of volunteers. Normally at every meeting we have at least 30, 35 people, but
Mhm,
all they do, they either are part of the Speakers Bureau, so they go out and do presentations, or they do tabling events. That's the limit of what we have them do. And I'm thinking, I'm hearing tax aid and driver safety and
mhm.
livable communities, and I'm hearing all of those, and I'm like, how do you get all of those teams? We have a 10-member leadership team, no, 9-member leadership team that works directly with the ASD to plan meetings and to get all of that list of speakers that are needed. And we have a person in charge of scheduling tabling. We have a person in charge of running the Speakers Bureau, that's me. And then trying to utilize our volunteers on a regular basis. I'm always looking for how do we let them run the monthly meeting? Okay, this one can do this and that. So you get people up and get them involved and keep them going. But we seem to be limited in what we're actually doing with our volunteers. Even when we look at the state plan where our focus is, caregiving and fraud and
Mhm.
uh,
Brain health and so on.
brain health and whatever. We
Mhm.
do the classes, but I mean, I'm just looking for all these other opportunities that we can create for our volunteers because we got some of them don't do anything for 2, 3 months because there's 35 of them. And even if you have 5 tabling events and 3 speaking events in the eighth, you still got a lot that didn't do anything.
I
Okay.
saw Mary Roberts raised
Yeah,
her hand.
because rather than me answer, Mary, please, you go on.
So, okay, but it just dawned on me that we're just saying you were doing just strictly tabling events. Because we do tabling and we do, you know, community events like ice cream nights and, the movies for
Mhm,
grownups. Um, I started this long ago. I stopped it for a while, but I'm back to it again. I find a role for every volunteer. My thing
mhm,
is, I always hate to say no. And I have been told by a couple of volunteers who've been around a while that sometimes I have too many volunteers for an event. But to be honest with you, one of the reasons people volunteer is they want to be involved with other people. So I look at it as a way of preventing them from having, not being socially excluded.
mhm,
So I'll find little things like, especially if you do an event like an ice cream night or a movie, you will have a long line, and I will say, okay, I want the volunteers. I'll give 2 or 3 volunteers a role of interacting with the audience. in with the people in line, because that is a role, and they're engaging and they're talking to people. So for me, it works. It may not work for other people, but I just don't want them to feel like all they have to do is come to a monthly meeting. And I do encourage them to look at other aspects of AARP, because to me, there's so many wonderful opportunities within AARP that you can try. So I think sometimes we have to be a little bit creative of how we engage our volunteers.
I really want to hear more about like the ice cream night. Let's see, Mary, I'll just have to call you.
Okay, Antoine has his hand back up again, please.
Yeah.
Antoine?
Yeah, just to be able to answer the person's question too, like how do you get all these roles and how do you, these different positions and stuff. So here in California, we have a few roles. Um, we have policy advisors. We have volunteers who specifically do advocacy, and that's all they want to do. And we have volunteers that do, the movies for grown-ups, and we have volunteers that love tabling. We have volunteers that do presentations. Every single one is a different position. And we have position descriptions for each one of them, so we can explain, what the expectations are on their side and on our side. So just that there's this clear communication that happens, and the volunteers are connected to a staff person. All of that really is generated by staff. It has to be green lit by a staff person, to be able to get the positions, the position descriptions, how they're going to roll, how they're going to fit within the staff structure and all of that. Now, some things could be a little bit more on the volunteer side. Like, we don't have a lot of volunteers that are actively involved in like processing and recruiting specific. Now they recruit folks to come on board and be volunteers. But in terms of process, getting them into the portal and all of those different things, that's really more of a staff responsibility. Some states is, volunteers to do that as well.
Right.
But it just depends really on the direction and focus of your state office. That's where the positions are going to come from. The opportunities are going to come from. And because, yeah, like I said, it has to, like, we have a whole volunteer structure. We have a 1-page document with boxes, kind of like an org chart, right? Where it shows who's doing what the positions are, who reports to whom. But that is developed by staff. So I would encourage whoever that was, I can't remember who it was, to really just have a conversation. Oh, Ramel, yeah. To have a conversation, Ramel, with the Georgia State Office folks, who are some great people. Know a few folks in the Georgia State Office, but just, talking to them about, hey, there are some things that we would love to see volunteers maybe have an opportunity to do that are beyond what they're doing right now. And just have that conversation with them, and not expect that to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen tomorrow. The AARP is a large ship, and I don't sail, but I know in sailing, it's hard to turn the ship. It takes some time. It takes some waves. It takes, all of that great stuff. So, but I would say start with your state office, state director, ASDs, all those folks, your executive council, to have those conversations.
I'm beginning to get the picture here that every state is set up differently.
Yep, very
Absolutely.
different. Yep.
Absolutely.
All of our volunteers, those 35 I talked to you about that are always there, every one of them have done each one of those things. They've done speaking, they've done tabling, they've done movies for grown-ups. We just had an advocacy planning meeting today, and all of them were on the Zoom call because we're going to do visit the Capitol today. And, like out of the 35, 20 of them were there. Some say, I can't travel to the Capitol. It's too cumbersome, blah, 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 so they don't get involved with that. How many movies for grown-ups do you get in a year?
A lot.
A lot?
Yeah, a lot. And yeah, it's a good amount. It's a good amount. Yeah.
You get two in a year.
Oh no, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Antoine, thank you for your adding to the conversation. And we've had a comment in the chat. There's someone who would like to see the org chart that you mentioned, and if you would provide that, we can share that information. Now we're running out of time, but Patricia, you've got your hand up. Now I want to give you a second here.
Yes, I was just going to sort of add on to what Antoine just shared. We do something very similar to to California on a smaller scale, but we also create teams where, we think about what things that are not the norm. So we created teams that particularly around volunteer recruiting. So we have volunteer recruiting teams across the state. We have volunteers who actually call care teams, and what they do is, so if there's a volunteer who's in the hospital or a volunteer who may be going through something where they need some extra love, we know we have care team volunteers across the state. We have volunteers who actually go out and just do hosting for events that they want to do in their community. I think Miss Mary was talking earlier about community events, and so we have volunteers who just do that. So I think it's really, it's important to speak with your volunteers to find out what they want to do, and then just help create teams and engagement around those opportunities. They'll tell you, they do. Volunteers are very vocal about the things they like to do, and so they'll let you know if there is something that they're interested in. And so I think we have formatted our org chart around that. It's not just what what AARP programs there are, but it's also those little things you don't think about. So,
yeah.
And Deborah, if I could just add one thing before we
Yes,
close.
ma'am, Mary. Okay, we'll close.
Roles and tasks are many in what volunteers can do. And I remember I was in New Mexico, and Joseph, I know you'll remember this, and Josephine was at a presentation, and this one volunteer said to us, "What about tablecloths? Who makes sure that the tablecloths are clean?" And that was a role that was very important. We know our image is everything. We know we can't have messy, dirty tablecloths. And that was a role, a task that she had taken on. And that stuck with me because that might be something that you don't think about. And it might be that one thing that that one volunteer who's quietly sitting in the back might say, I can do that. That might be the entry into them being a megastar volunteer, or that might be the only thing that they do. But that is a role and a task. And you're not going to find that on any of the org charts or spreadsheets or lists. But just know that sometimes you have to break things down into, smaller denominations so that people can feel where they can step in.
All right. Well, thank you, Mary. And I'm sorry that we did keep you for 3 minutes longer than normal, but this has been a good conversation. We did not even get to finish all of the questions because some of us, like me, talk too much. But we will share the information that we have gotten. Thank you all very much. Next month, we're going to talk about communication with volunteers, disgruntled volunteers. Are there some ways to make that easier? That's one of the things to do. That's next month. So thank you all very much. Really appreciate your coming. Thank you, Dr. Mary, for helping, and thank you, OVE staff. We hope to see you in February.
Thank you, Deborah. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.
Hi, Mary Boberge, did you see my chat message?
Yes, I did see your chat message just now, and
Thank
I've
you.
got your number. Okay.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ramel.
Well, don't forget to invite us all when you have your ice cream event.
I love that idea. It's a great spring event,
You know, the thing is, Kathy, we were just talking about that today before I got on this call. And what seems to be happening now is that when the public comes to our events, like we generally do it a theme, like our ASC is really great at doing themes. And this happens with our bowling too, is, okay, I thought you were going to have a presentation. So we're trying to think of a way now that we can somehow do a little 10 or 15-minute presentation on these events.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's a good thing because it's telling me that the public wants information from us.
That's wonderful evolution of fun with a purpose, and they're asking for the purpose. That's awesome.
Right. And there's not a thing that says we can't do that. And we can make that presentation as small as it needs to be to fit the time, but to whet the appetite of the citizens in the room for
Right.
AARP.
We've been handing out material, but now they
Exactly. I
actually,
know you
yeah,
always have a social
Mhm.
impact connection, but they're literally wanting someone to say something. That's
Yeah,
really fascinating.
yeah,
that's
yeah,
good.
yeah. So
That's
it's
good.
it's a good thing. It's a little
Mhm.
bit of work, but it's a good thing.
How do you notify your community? How do you let them know?
We I mean, they do they post things on our website, on our state website. We use the VCC Center, and sometimes they post events in you know, the
Oh,
Oops.
I guess she'll call you, Romel.
Yeah, she hung. I didn't do her. I
No,
didn't
I
do
don't
that.
think
One of
she
those,
mentioned.
you know, like when we do
It
movies
just.
for grown-ups, they send out notices by zip code to the community,
Mhm.
to
Right.
the
Right.
members. And
Right.
I was wondering if we did an ice cream social, we wouldn't have a clue how many people. Well, we could have them register to come. That way, we know how much ice cream we needed to
Yeah,
provide.
Yeah, and
you're
that's what.
gonna love talking with her. They've been doing ice cream socials for like 10 years, so 5 years. There she is, she's back.
Yeah.
So she'll
Oh,
tell
Yeah.
you all the secrets.
Right.
Mary, I want to
Because
stop the recording, Deborah.
yes, ma'am. Got it.
you're
Got
muted,
it.
Mary.
Yeah.
Mary.
Mary.
Come off